It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders on his Afternoon Drive. How we doing, Alan?
Just had to turn it up a little bit. Song came on, I was like, you know what? No, we need a little bit more. We need a little bit more.
It's too good. It's too good. So I have to always turn my volume down from the work setting that I have to do this episode. But when the music's playing, I turn it back up and then have to turn it back down. So that's kind of just where we're at to get the juices going. But all right, yeah, Alan, every Thursday when the coordinators talk and stuff, I kind of just want to start off the episode. I like to start off the episode by just saying, hey, did they say anything of note that interests you? Because sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Was there anything that came out of today's conversations with the coordinators that you felt was worthwhile to bring up?
Well, first, before we talk to the coordinators, Cam Heyward talked to us this morning. And
yep.
Cam was wearing Mike Tomlin's Nameless Gray Faces t-shirt.
Yes.
I believe it says specifically, like, we're not worried about nameless gray faces. Mm-hmm. And awesome, by the way. And it has like Madden create a player like gray face on the front of it. And I was going to ask ask him about Anthony Richardson. I'm trying to write a story about how Anthony Richardson's mobility makes the Colts rushing game better. But, you get into one of those, do you want to answer a question, ask a question that is being answered by the man's t-shirt situations? You don't want to be the guy that asks the guy wearing the Nameless Gray Faces t-shirt the question that yields the Nameless Gray Faces answer. And so I just passed on that opportunity. Cam did talk about some other stuff, but and then we got into the coordinators. Did ask TA about Anthony Richardson, and fairly coach-speaky answer, but we'll have a story there on Steelers Now. Not a whole lot from TA that really stands out to me as stuff we've got to talk about. Arthur Smith, I thought was pretty interesting. He talked about Darnell Washington, just gushed about Darnell Washington, man.
Yeah, that seems like the type of player that he'd love to have had in Atlanta for sure, too.
He said, I've never had a tight end like Darnell Washington, and just went on and on about his blocking ability. And, I mean, if you watch the tape, Darnell Washington was such a huge part of their run game success against the Chargers. Him and Broderick Jones on the right-hand side were just caving dudes in. It was quite fun to watch. And also talked a lot about Cordarrelle Patterson, his sort of history with him, and how he sees him being used in this offense, and why players like Cordarrelle Patterson and Connor Heyward are useful. And that brought up a question we got on YouTube. So you just want to jump to that here? Because it all kind of goes together.
Yeah. Nico says he's trying to figure out what Connor Heyward's role on the team is, basically, to kind of summarize, because it's a little bit longer. But he said, what's his role on the team? Obviously, he's not a great blocker. He'd be too small to be like a traditional tight end as a blocker or receiver even. What exactly do you see in Connor Heyward? Why is he on this 53-man roster?
When I first got this question, what I really wanted to do was take it to Connor and sit down with him Office Space and be like, so what would you say you do here exactly?
Yeah.
You
wanted to do that, but unfortunately he has a meeting with the Bobs that he's got to get to.
Yeah. So I'll settle for Arthur Smith's answer. I may decide to get with Connor down the line and see if we can get his take on this. So Connor Heyward is a really interesting player. First of all, I'll just say this. He's a good special teamer, and that is his primary job. That's the reason he's on the roster. He's a good special teamer. He's a versatile athlete. He can fill a number of different roles. He can be like a lineman on a punt. He can be a wing back on a punt. He can be an up man on kickoff return, or he can be a back player on kickoff return. So he's a good He's a good special teamer. That's first and foremost. The second thing Connor Heyward brings to the table is he has really great hands. And I think like those two things added together, if you are a special teamer with one really good trait, that is like enough to be on a 53-man roster, basically. If you have one thing that you're good at, plus you're a good special teamer, that's enough. But very specifically, Connor Heyward does something that makes him more useful than his own statistical contributions may appear to be. And so this is going to require like some explanation. Defenses categorize offensive player groups by the number of each type of skill position player, okay? And they use these like 2-digit codes, which are it's very inside football. It doesn't really matter. But like, so they use the number of tight ends and the number of wide receiver and the number of running backs. So we'll say like, 11 personnel, 1-1. That's one running back and one tight end. Okay. The numbers don't matter. But defenses are going to call their defense based on the personnel of the offense. So there's actually someone on game day whose job it is to have binoculars on the other sideline watching them decide who's going to come into the game on this play. So that person will be the first person to announce in the headphones to the rest of the defensive staff, hey, this play is going to be 10 personnel, 1 running back, 4 wide receivers, 0 tight ends, okay? So the defense is then going to call its play based on that. So Terrell Austin's going to hear the call from his whatever assistant coach's role that is. Some person very low on the coaching staff has that job. Let's just say that. He's going to say, oh, they're in 4 wide receivers. I need to have dime out there. Okay, so the offense is going to go 10 personnel. TA is going to say it's dime. And then he's going to put the dime in, and then he's going to make so then the players are going to start to run on the field. And while that's happening, TA is flipping through his play sheet to get to the dime plays, and then he's going to make a play call into his microphone, and it's going to come into Patrick Queen's ear, and then he's going to yell to everybody else, and that's how the play gets called. Players like Cordarrelle Patterson and Connor Heyward wreck that entire proposition because you don't know what to call them when they run off the sideline. Like, when Cordarrelle Patterson or Connor Heyward runs onto the field, the defense doesn't know what the offense intends to do with them. Connor Heyward could be a running back. He could be a fullback. He could be a tight end. Cordarrelle Patterson could be a wide receiver. He could be a tight end. He could be a fullback. He could be a running back. And so the defense doesn't – like you're not letting the defense in on any information just based on who runs onto the field. The Steelers can run – Pat Freiermuth and Connor Heyward and a running back and 2 wide receivers out there, okay? Now, you might want to call that 21 personnel, okay? But they can come out and empty, right? Because Jalen Warren's a good receiver. Connor Heyward's a good receiver. Yeah. Pat Freiermuth's a good receiver. Like, that's 5 good receivers if they come out and empty, okay? They could also have that same group of players, but Cordarrelle Patterson is one of those wide receivers. And now – Connor Heyward's lined up as a fullback with his hand in the ground, and it's traditional I formation, and it's like an obvious running play, right? Like you can have the same personnel, and you're not giving away any of your intentions based on who comes across the sideline. And so you get the defense in bad calls because they're not expecting you to do what you're doing based on the people you have out there. So like a player like Connor Heyward who hides from the defense what the offense is intending to do is really, really useful, even if you don't see him getting a ton of statistical contributions. Cordarrelle Patterson is exactly the same way. Now, Cordarrelle Patterson is a better player than Connor Heyward, but he does a lot of the same things, and that's why Arthur Smith really likes players like that.
No, that's really good. And that makes a ton of sense. I remember going back to when we were still in training camp, though, we were wondering, like, is there a fit/role for Connor Heyward? I 100% get what you're saying, but for you personally, do you feel like that brings enough value to have on the 53 as opposed to somebody else, along with obviously the fact that he contributes in the way that he does on special teams?
Yeah, I do, because he's a pretty good blocker when he's not in line, when you can use him as a wing back or a fullback or an H-back or something
Yeah.
like that. He's a pretty good blocker. There's some really nice wham blocks or kick-out blocks that he made last week against the Chargers, where he's kind of running down the line of scrimmage to get ahead of steam. He's just a little bit too short to be a traditional inline tight end. You don't want him blocking a defensive end, head up, but he's a pretty good blocker from that H-back role, and he's got great hands. So, I mean, if something happens to a tight end or a running back, that's the other thing, is like he was a college running back. So if you get into a game and you get low on personnel, you can go play him a running back. You can play him a tight end. You can play him a fullback. I think just that versatility on the game day roster, it's like he's the backup for three positions, and in addition to being a key special teamer. Now, like, is there a role for him in the offense, like a regular receiving role in the offense? I don't know. Probably not. Not when everybody's healthy. But I don't think that matters in terms of making him a useful player to have on your roster.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to take the attention back to Arthur Smith potentially, because did he say anything about Justin Fields at all today? Was he asked anything about Justin?
A little bit. Nothing that's like jumping off the page to me about Justin Fields.
Okay.
I did talk to Justin.
Well, that's what I was going to pivot to. If he didn't say anything, I was just going to say, all right, well, I knew Justin talked today. Yeah.
Yeah. So I talked to Justin, and I thought it was really interesting. 1 turnover through 3 games. That's really good. It's also like totally against the grain of his career, right? I mean, that's sort of been the MO. And so I asked him, like, what do you feel like you're doing better or different? Or did you intend, was there something that you worked on to get better at? And he spent 2 minutes giving a long answer that is just basically him being really upset with himself about the 1 turnover. He never even came close to answering the question. He just went on and on and on about how upset he was about that one, and why it was a bad decision. And then I tried to get him to talk about, like, does he feel like his turnovers are more decisions or physical mistakes? And, he said it can be both, but I feel like the answer is, with him, he's the kind of athlete that, quarterbacks that never run are obviously not going to turn the ball over as much as the ones that do. There's a whole other part of his game there that is going to open himself up to more turnovers than a guy who never leaves the pocket. Like that is just a part of life with Justin Fields. But I think, in terms of passing, he's not an inaccurate passer. I feel like almost all of his turnovers in passing are about forcing something, trying to do too much, or misreading a defense. Like that, like his ball is pretty accurate. Like, it's not crazy accurate. I think he doesn't have like great anticipation, I would say. Like, it's not like throwing guys open all the time, but like it pretty much goes where he wants it to. It's not like he has interceptions where he's trying to throw at this guy and the ball just like sails 4 feet over his head into the arms of a safety. Like, that is not the way most of Justin Fields' interceptions go. It is because he tries to do something that he probably shouldn't have tried to do, and it backfires on him. And I think, like, if there's a theme of this season so far for Justin Fields, it's been that he just seems like a more mature player. And I think the lack of turnovers is like the number one evidence of that.
I want to completely unrelated, but you said he seems like a more mature player, and we haven't really touched on this at all. I know that we had a brief conversation like prior to the season about this player seeming different in year 3, but George Pickens, man, like I've even seen like some stuff in terms of like post-game availability and stuff like that. He just seems like a different, I'm not gonna say he's a different person or anything like that, but I feel like there's a level of maturity or growth that's taken place there. I've seen a couple people talking about it. Like, do you agree with that? Do you think that that's taken place? Do you think I don't think he's ever going to be like a leader within the receiver room in that respect, but I don't know. Have you seen anything from year 2 to year 3 for George?
Somebody asked him that, man. Like, I have to admit, like, sometimes we as a media collective, and I'm not. I'd like to think I'm better than most, but I'm not immune. But we ask some bad questions sometimes, and somebody asked George Pickens about his leadership this offseason. I was like, "What are we doing?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "I lead by example," or something like that. I don't know. It was a bad question and a worse answer. No wonder they don't want to talk to us. George has not been particularly, he's pulling teeth to get him to talk to us. Not that matters, but I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. I think somebody asked me about this with Najee too, and I think Najee deserves a lot of credit for a lot of things, and I'm not sure that I would go that far with George Pickens. I just think you're 3-0. If you can't be happy when you're 3-0, you just can't be happy. We'll see how that goes when some losses happen. I do think I give Najee Harris a lot of credit for actually being a leader. And it's not a dig at George. This is not who his personality is. And I think people put on Najee Harris that he was supposed to be a leader when he got to the Steelers, even as a young guy. I think Mike Tomlin put a little bit of that on his shoulders.
Yeah.
And I think over the last 3 years, he's fallen pretty far short of that in a number of ways. Not this year. Not this year. I think Najee Harris deserves a ton of credit for his attitude, his mindset, the way he's attacked his situation this season. That's a player where I think I have seen a demonstrative change in him not reacting to situations that are beyond him and just I don't know what more the Steelers could possibly have asked for out of the way that Najee Harris has shown up, gone to work, gone about his business. I really do think, he's not a rah-rah guy. He's not the world's most extroverted person in that regard. But I really do think that I will say I feel like Najee Harris has had an extremely professional season. He has acted like a real pro's pro. And I think that, to me, that's a very high compliment. And I think he deserves credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody that's around these guys every day, you would know more than most. I think the reason that I said about George, I saw a clip talking about his relationship and building chemistry with Justin. And I don't know, it just seemed like a different answer than he would have given in the past. And just the energy surrounding him kind of seemed different than in the past. But you're right. I mean, once they start losing football games, we'll see when and if that does change. Back to Justin, though, because this came out today, and I wanted to bring this up. I don't even know how to enter this subject. Okay, Andrew Filipponi, 93.7 The Fan, put out that he's had some birdies, and I love when that term gets thrown out there, talking his way that if the Steelers were to break their tradition of signing players in season 2 extensions, they could get a 2-year deal done right now with Justin Fields for $50 million. I'll set the table with that, Alan, and I'll let you go.
Well, I think that's a bad deal for Justin Fields, and I'm not saying that Pony's wrong to hear that. I'm just saying I don't personally believe that he would take that.
So but that's the thing. It's if they wouldn't, they're not going to break their own. If they're going to break their own tradition, was the way that this was worded, which means they wouldn't be, right. So you would think that this is from Justin, assuming Justin's side.
It sort of projects it's being reported from someone close to Justin Fields, right?
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But I don't believe that he would take that deal. So I don't know. Maybe.
And also, what's the guarantee on it?
Right. I mean, that no guarantee. Yeah, sure. Right. Yeah. So here's what I'll say about this. First of all, Justin Fields' agent, whoever is advising him, I pray would look at these 3 games and be like, do not sign a contract on that.
Isn't it Mulugeta? Isn't he a Mulugeta guy?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all look at these first 3 games. I talked a lot this morning about how the Steelers' offense has not been very good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, a lot of the comments from this morning's show were like, yeah, but they're going to get better, right? And I'm like, well, the sort of premise was, what if they don't? Okay, just to illustrate that they need to be better. But I think expecting them to be better is very reasonable. It's very realistic. Like, we talked a lot this offseason about how this offense was going to need to take time to get going, and that was before, 19 people got hurt, including the starting quarterback. And so, I do think the offense will be better going forward. Justin Fields would be crazy to take that deal right now.
Yeah.
So, let's say that. Secondly, why would Justin Fields want a 2-year contract? That doesn't make any sense to me either. If I'm Justin Fields, given what's happened to me in my career, if I have a good year, I am cashing in. I'm not going halfway. What is he betting on? That he's going to go 250 and then he's going to be so much better in those two that the next one's going to be 200? What? Why would he want a 2-year deal? If you're Justin Fields and you just basically got fired by the Chicago Bears and shipped out for a 6th-round draft pick, and someone wants to give you a contract, take the 4-year deal, friend. You want 4. You don't want 2. You want 4. Okay?
That's what I'm saying. Doesn't this sound more like a contract that if Russell Wilson played this year really well, he would get in free agency?
Yeah. I'll tell you what it sounds like. It sounds like a deal that Omar Khan would very much like to have.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. Now, if that's true, that Justin Fields would take a 250 deal, yeah, the Steelers should do that. I am a firm believer in tradition. I think tradition is important. I think tradition has its place in every area of life. Tradition makes sense right up until the point where it starts to hold you back from something better. And the Steelers have never negotiated a contract extension in season with one of their own players. They've also never gone into a season with all 3 of their quarterbacks on an expiring contract.
Yeah.
Every situation has an exception. There is a first time for everything. It will not hurt them to negotiate a contract in what is a completely unprecedented situation in the season. If this is true, that Justin Fields would take a 2-year, $50 million contract, Omar Khan should be in Justin Fields' locker with a pen and a piece of paper and not leaving until it's signed, because that is an incredible deal for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they should absolutely do it. If Omar would refuse to do that just based on tradition, incomprehensibly stupid. And I don't believe Omar to be incomprehensibly stupid. So, yeah, they should do that. That's a great deal for the Steelers. Absolutely, they should do that. I believe that if Justin Fields finishes the season as the Steelers starting quarterback, and about what I think is going to happen happens. The Steelers are about 9-8 or something like that. You are looking at more like 420 for Justin Fields, or 450 for Justin Fields, not 250.
Yeah, I think people really underestimate quarterback contracts, and they're just going to think oh, he hasn't been a $25 million per year player, or we don't think he's going to be a $25 million per year player. Go look around. Take a look at
Gardner Minshew is isn't he like a 17?
That sounds about right. I can look.
That's nothing.
He got 2 for 25, 15 million guaranteed.
12 and a half. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is very unlikely that Justin Fields would agree to a contract for $25 million per season. If he would, the Steelers should take it immediately. Now, maybe it's all guaranteed. Even if it's all guaranteed on a 2-year deal, do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm skeptical of that being true. I do think the Steelers should do it if it is. That's kind of where I lie. Where do you lie on that?
Same. Yeah, I would 100% sign up for that right now, immediately. The imagery that you put in my head also of Omar Khan just kind of standing there by Justin Fields' locker every day when he walks in until he signs this thing. I also really enjoyed 25. That's what Geno Smith is making right now.
Right. So, yeah, great. Sign me up.
And it's less than the likes of these aren't
Daniel
even
Jones.
Baker Mayfield's making 33.
Yeah,
Derek
that's
Carr's
perfect.
making 37.5. Yeah. There's obviously some bad. You don't want to just like I could say Daniel Jones is making 40, but
40.
Obviously like that's not not one that you would want your team
If
doing.
Justin
anyway
Fields is the starter all year and the Steelers go 9-8, 10-7, make the playoffs, win a game, it's gonna be pretty darn close to 40. It's gonna be more than 30.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's one more thing I want to get to on today's episode. And here we go. I don't know if the people are ready for this. I'm about to say their name. PFF. They're back at it. The geniuses are back at it. They've introduced something new, something brand new to the football world. Chip percentage. And TJ Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers currently leads the lead in chip percentage.
I love
again. Hold on. Again, I gotta preface by saying this: if you're listening to this show on Spotify, Apple, wherever your podcast from, you're not getting the full experience. So, just want to mention that.
If I want to preface this by saying, this tweet comes out from PFF, and like 9 people tag me under it, and also people in the Steelers media room are like, "Alan, did you see the PFF tweet?" Like, I love
you're the guy.
Now
you're the go-to guy now.
The guy to go to. It's I believe Brooke Pryor from ESPN said, "What a great brand," and it is. I really appreciate that. Look, this is good. One, like this is a piece of information that I will probably find useful, and PFF has lots of pieces of information that are useful. I use PFF almost every day. This will be another thing that I will find useful. But just the audacity of being like, oh yeah, chips are important after like 5 years of telling us, no, the only things that matter are double team rate and pass rush win rate. That's it. Nothing else matters. Sacks don't matter. None of the. Don't worry about anything else. The only 2 things you need to know about edge rushers are double team rate and pass rush win rate. And it's completely coincidental that those are 2 stats that we make here at PFF. The fact that we don't control how many sacks don't matter. The NFL controls sacks. They're irrelevant. Chips, I don't even know what that is. They don't matter. No, nothing else matters except pass rush win rate and double team rate. Oh, now we have a metric for chips? I bet you're going to hear all about chips from PFF. Why? Because they're counting them now, and they have to talk about how great their stats are instead of, I don't know, living in the rational world with the rest of us that have been watching football for the rest of forever, that have been knowing this for, like what's the next thing that PFF just suddenly discovers exists in football that the rest of us have been like, excuse me, you forgot about this for all of, they should get some credit for acknowledging that this exists, and it will probably make their product slightly less awful. But it's just the we reinvented the wheelness of it all makes my eye twitch a little bit.
Yeah. 1, that was awesome. That monologue. 2, this is great because last year it seemed like it was very PFF driven and everyone kind of getting on board with it that Myles Garrett won Defensive Player of the Year. TJ Watt is winning Defensive Player of the Year because of chip percentage being introduced by PFF. That is my main takeaway here. Congratulations to TJ Watt.
TJ should have won it last year. I will. I know that I just said a lot of things that are going to make the fans very happy. If I was voting right now, I think I would vote for Aiden Hutchinson. He has 6.5 sacks.
He's unbelievable. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you can argue.
Yeah, but what's his chip percentage? I actually don't know. I'm going to look at that.
I don't know either.
Also, wait, as we're recording here, Pizza Hut just tweeted at me, which is very funny, and I feel like I have to bring up. I don't know if you saw earlier. I was watching the Pat McAfee show, and they're sponsored by Pizza Hut, and they always say like nobody out pizzas the Hut, obviously. So I said, had the worst nightmare. Somebody out pizza the Hut. I woke up in a pool of my own sweat, and they just quoted me and said, "Don't worry, Zachary. Our team is fully equipped and aware of all current threats." Appreciate that. Pizza Hut. Anyways, proceed.
Yeah. I think the Hut has been out pizzaed many times.
They have been. Yeah. I mean, if they're listening to this, and
if they want to sponsor here's the thing. I have too much integrity about pizza to even have Pizza Hut as a sponsor. I can't even do it. I couldn't even do it. Like I just couldn't.
Okay, well, I don't, and I host another podcast. So around the 412, if Pizza Hut wants to sponsor, I will 100% take their money. Anyways, yeah, Aiden Hutchinson. I want to look at the chip percentage here because I'm sure that his is very good as well. But TJ Watt's leading in it right now at 44.05%. So,
yeah.
Aiden Hutchinson down here at 18.18%, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th. You would be very the second and third are Denver Broncos players, Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito.
Well, it's because we've only had 3 weeks, and the Steelers don't trust their tackles.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Who else did they play? Seattle. They played Seattle and Tampa as well in those games.
Very interesting that TJ Watt has been chipped that much, considering I think he's faced a couple pretty. Cale McGarry's a good right tackle. Joe Alton, good right tackle. Like he's been chipped that much, and he has faced guys who you generally feel okay about leaving to their own devices. The Steelers do not feel good about leaving their tackles to their own devices. So I'm sure all of the edge rushers the Steelers faced have seen elevated chip rates.
I mean, do you see this? Did you take a look at this at all yet? This percentage?
Very surface level.
I mean, so TJ's doubled the second, Jonathan Cooper. Like, he has 22%. TJ's at 44.
I also just think it's funny that, like, you're an analytics company and you're rolling out a product 3 weeks into the season. Like, do you know, like, the dumbest sample size of all the 3 weeks, TJ Watt's the greatest. Like, what? Yeah. Where was like? You should have rolled this out. I mean, they did put the 2023 numbers in there. By the way, Myles Garrett was the best.
Yawn.
But what? But like 3 weeks of anything doesn't tell us anything.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold is leading, or Andy Dalton is leading the league in touchdowns. Like what? Yeah, like what? Do we really think that's gonna stay? So why should we give a crap about this stat for 3 weeks of data either? Like, it's meaningless. And the thing about PFF that really bothers me the most, besides the hypocrisy, well, no, it really is the hypocrisy, but besides the know-it-allness of it, is that it's just not really analytics. It's a combination of some okay data and some subjective opinions masked by the facade of knowingness when it really knows nothing. And I really, really hate that company.
I had
but this data is probably
pretty good idea. Yeah. I hope the listeners and watchers appreciated PFF once again being brought up on here, and Alan raising his voice, and people that are probably driving by looking and having no idea what's going on. Everything's okay, fellow drivers. Just talking about PFF. Alex Highsmith, 27th in the league, for anybody that's curious with the statistic right now. Alan, anything else?
I think that's it, man.
All right. You know the drill. Tell the people they can find you.
In podcast tomorrow, taking this Friday off, you and DB will run the show. I'll give my prediction for the Colts game on Morning Rush after my matchup tomorrow. And so then you can find me at @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now is the site's account, and SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the words so that I can get paid. Use promo code Allen10, get 10% off an annual subscription, which costs like $4 a month. and you get ad-free experience. You get all the best stuff. By the way, Southside Scoop this week has an exclusive conversation with Pat Fryermuth about the suspension of Chargers safety Derwin James, and he does not say what I think you will think he says.
All right. Well, there you go. Be sure to read that. I mean, every week you should read the Southside Scoop, but there you go for this week. A little bit of a tease as to what you're going to be getting. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Hit us in the comments with your thoughts on anything we talked about or a question for a future episode. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find us there, just like you can find us on TikTok at Steelers Afternoon Drive. And then you can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.